No safety or surprise, the end.
I'm Sadie Guinness, and I'm going to tell you what the just happened in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 2. And after you watch this, please check out more of our What the videos. This season, Sabrina embraced her magic side, and magic really embraced her right back. We finally found out what the prophecy about Sabrina is, but we only learned this after a group of angelic witch hunters attacked the academy and actually killed Sabrina. But then she arose from the dead wearing a crown of thorns with white eyes and like fireballs going everywhere. She killed the angels and then resurrected the witches they had killed. And then she died again, but then resurrected herself. Sabrina thought these powers were because she's half mortal, half witch, which in her mind made her not less of a witch, but more than one.
Do you think you can handle it?
However, after Harvey and Theo discover this like freaky ass shrine in the mines, she learns that all of these powers are actually because she is the Herald of Hell.
I am evil.
This means that if Sabrina performs perversions of the miracles Jesus did in the Bible, then the gates of hell are gonna open, the hordes of hell are gonna enslave human and witch kind, and the Dark Lord is gonna rule over this like fiery new earth.
What makes you an expert?
She is determined not to perform these perversions. Twist, she's already done all of them except for one. She realizes Mrs. Wardwell, aka Lilith, has already tricked her into performing these, such as exorcism, raising the dead, crossing into limbo, and restoring eyesight to the blind. Knowing this, Sabrina is absolutely determined not to perform the last perversion.
Your manipulations are over.
But she accidentally winds up doing it in her quest to stop herself from doing it. She's like, I'm gonna take away all of my magic powers, give it to this mandrake, and then I can't perform any miracles. However, the mandrake goes like totally psycho and she winds up killing it, which is the final perversion.
What are you saying?
And so the Dark Lord rises in his angelic form, which resembles a very hot personal trainer, and he summons Sabrina to take her rightful place at his side as his queen. Ugh. We get into the incesty stuff later. Sabrina tells him like, no, I'm absolutely not gonna be your like queen of the damned. And he says that she has said no every step of the way, but she's still wound up here. And he's ensured this thanks to the help of one
Nicholas.
Yes, we all knew there was something like very shady about Nick, but he is not the Dark Lord, he's not super evil. It turns out the Dark Lord literally just asked him to get close to Sabrina and make being a witch fun. And she is super pissed. As upset Sabrina was at this Nick reveal though, like the impact of that was completely forgotten once the Dark Lord dropped this next bomb, that Edward Spellman is not the father.
I am.
It turns out Edward and Diana had trouble conceiving a child, so they went to the Dark Lord for help, and apparently he did a whole lot more than help, and he magically impregnated Diana, and Sabrina was born of witch blood, mortal blood, and unholy blood, the ultimate perversion of the Holy Trinity. Sabrina barely has time to process this reveal though, because she needs to stop the apocalypse from happening.
Not today, Satan.
So she teams up with her aunties, Ambrose, her mortal friends, and even Lilith and Nick to try and take down the Dark Lord. And thanks to Roz's cunning, Harvey's drawing skills, and Theo's bravery, they're able to stop the gates of hell from opening by drawing a ton of sigils and just laying them on the ground. It's like when you put salt on the ground. You know, I've done that before. The witches then perform the glamour to end all glamours by tricking the Dark Lord until allowing them to trap him inside the Acheron configuration that Edward Spellman made. However, like this is Satan and that little puzzle box is not strong enough to hold him and he breaks free and they realize he needs to be trapped inside a much stronger prison, like the Alcatraz of prisons, the human body. So Nick sacrifices himself and does a spell so that he takes the Dark Lord inside his own body, and then they like use magic to knock him out. Lilith, the newly crowned queen of hell, takes Nick back to her kingdom where she promises she's gonna stop him from wreaking havoc on Earth. Yeah, I'm talking really fast today. I need to slow down. What the is gonna happen now? Sabrina and her mortal friends decide to keep working together to like fight the forces of darkness, and they dub themselves the
Fright Club.
Like Fight Club. Like the first rule of Fight Club is that you don't tell anyone else about the devil. And the first mission is
Let's go to hell and get my boyfriend back.
But we have no idea what Sabrina and her friends are gonna find if they get to hell, or what state Nick is even gonna be in. We spoke to the Dark Lord's vessel himself, Gavin Leatherwood, and here's what he had to say.
I asked Roberto, am I gonna be in hell? Like, am I gonna be there for a while? And like, what's the deal? And they're like, well, they're coming to get you, and we're gonna show that in the first episode. So that's all I know. There's
still the question though of how Sabrina is gonna like save Nick without freeing the Dark Lord. In the Bible, the spear of Longinus is the spear that pierced Jesus' side while he was on the cross.
Only the spear of Longinus could kill me.
her and her Fright Club friends are probably gonna have to track it down and bring it to hell with them if they want any chance of taking down the Dark Lord and saving Nick.
Basically.
Fingers crossed this isn't a Buffy Angel situation and she winds up having to kill Nick in order to like stop the apocalypse from rising again. And as for what having the Dark Lord trapped inside him is gonna mean for Nick, here's what Gavin's hoping.
I would really love to see like a Smeagol Gollum kind of thing.
Not listening.
Where he's like battling having the Dark Lord in him as well as having Nick being his main being and then having this other kind of character within him too. I'm certain that having Satan inside of you definitely takes a toll on you.
There have been so many theories about Nick having a secret agenda or a secret identity since the show first premiered, but this season totally shut one of them down, that Nick is the Dark Lord.
Heresy.
Although technically now he is the Dark Lord because Satan's trapped inside him. To be fair, even Gavin had no idea what the truth about Nick was. Back when he was filming part 1, he was just told that there was like a hint of something going on with him.
It was actually the first episode I worked on, which was episode 4, and I give Sabrina Edward Spellman's journal. As she walks away, Rob Seidenglans, who's one of our producers and he also directs, goes, watch her go and then shoot a look up at Baphomet, because something might be brewing.
But while this Nick as Dark Lord theory has been squashed, there are still 2 very popular theories that are technically still in play. The first of which is absolutely cringy, and it's that Nick is actually Sabrina's twin brother.
I hope not. That would be so awkward.
In Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Sabrina finds out that the Spellman family secret is that every Spellman is born with a twin, and a lot of fans took that scene where Sabrina sees the 2 babies as very literally, and they think that the second baby is Nick. There's like a lot of incest theories about this show, and like, I get it. Her dad wanted her to be his queen, aka like his wife. That whole scene was so uncomfortable. But probably the most popular theory still in play is actually so much worse than the twin one, and it's that Nick is actually Edward Spellman, Sabrina's dad. The crazy thing is, like, Gavin is super grossed out by the twin theory, but he kind of seems up for this Edward Spellman theory.
If I was Edward Spellman with Satan inside of me in Nick Scratch's body, it would just be like cluster, you know what, going on up here. But I mean, hey, I'm all for the challenge.
The most f***ed up thing about this dad theory is that there's actually a lot of precedence for it in the comics. First off, the Edward Spellman in the comics is a total con artist, sexist creep, and he's just out for power. And instead of Harvey's brother dying and being resurrected, in the comics it's actually Harvey who dies, and when Sabrina and Wardwell resurrect him, she actually puts Edward Spellman's mind in Harvey's body, and then Edward as Harvey not only kills Harvey's parents, but then goes on a date with his daughter and thinks some very unpure thoughts. Yeah, this show might have Sabrina secretly be dating her dad. I didn't really think this theory had much weight until there was a line in part 2 where Nick was like,
I'd be proud of you. I'm proud of you.
red flags, red flags, red flags. It's like, is this foreshadowing?
Why can't this be the future?
Or is he just being supportive? We're gonna have to wait and see.
Praise Satan.
Speaking of creeps, Father Blackwood graduated to like a full-blown villain this season, wanting to turn the Church of Night into the Church of Judas, this like super sexist, like antiquated hellhole basically. And despite knowing all of this, when Blackwood proposes to Zelda,
Turtle Dove Hearts.
she says yes. And this is when everything basically goes to hell, or heaven, as the witches would say. The anti-pope comes to Greendale to officiate their wedding, but then this is when it gets a little convoluted. The rat familiar that Blackwood gave Ambrose crawls inside of his body and controls him from the inside and causes Ambrose to murder the anti-pope so that Blackwood can rise to power and use the Spellman as a scapegoat. You know, Ambrose gets locked in jail, Zelda still marries Father Blackwood, and then he puts a spell on her, basically turning her into like Body Snatcher's Stepford wife.
Isn't this music box marvelous?
Hilda and Sabrina realize that Zelda is not Zelda, break the spell, but she pretends to still be like, doop, 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 and like goes undercover. I did really like Zelda's like 50s dress though. Prudence, who's like finally been granted the Blackwood name, totally betrays Zelda and reveals to her father that she is no longer under his mind control spell.
You lied to me, Zelda.
And that she had helped Zelda steal away his daughter Letitia, whom Blackwood then recovers. Sabrina and her aunts manage to save Ambrose's life and get Blackwood stripped of the anti-pope title, but he still moves along with his plans to turn the Church of Night into this like misogynistic Church of Judas. But once Blackwood learns that the Dark Lord values Sabrina over him, he completely like loses his poisons the entire coven except for Prudence, Prudence wants no part of this, vows vengeance on her father, and goes to the Spellmans for help in trying to save the Coven before they all die. They are able to save some of them, including Dorcas and Agatha, but the Coven is completely decimated. Prudence and Ambrose wind up bonding over being manipulated by Blackwood. They decide to track Blackwood down and kill him and rescue Letitia and Judas. With Blackwood is an annoying name. With Blackwood and the Dark Lord defeated for now, the season finale saw women rising to positions of power. Zelda declares herself High Priestess, but says that they're not really the Church of Night anymore since, they don't worship the Dark Lord. And she muses about changing the name to the Church of Lilith, but I would not do that because Lilith is not trustworthy.
She's so sneaky. I wouldn't be surprised if Nick was chained up and was her, hell slave or something.
And if you were worried that Lilith returning to hell in her true form meant we were gonna lose Michelle Gomez next season, she, in a moment of kindness, did give Wardwell back her body and her life, although we don't know who's gonna break it to her that her fiancé Adam is no longer with us.
Clean your plate of the mortal.
The season answered so many questions about Sabrina and the prophecy, but there are still so many we need answered. When Lilith restored Sabrina's powers at the end of the finale, did she restore all of her powers or just her regular witch ones? I'm guessing Sabrina's gonna go back to being just a regular witch, mainly because having all of those Messiah abilities is gonna make her way too powerful to be interesting. Also, are we ever gonna learn who Edward Spellman really is? He's hovered over this entire series so far, and this season we even saw Sabrina really begin to question her father's moral character. But are we ever actually gonna find out whether Edward was good or evil, or actually get to know him as an active character?
I think he's going to be one of those kinds of characters that is more so in the peripheral. But as far as his involvement, I think he's more of the whisper in the back, yeah.
And finally, I know all of the fans are wondering what is next for the love triangle. Harvey's dating Roz, Nick is the vessel for Satan, and even though he has the Dark Lord inside him and was revealed to have betrayed Sabrina, she still did call Nick her boyfriend in the season finale. And so is there a chance that this whole ordeal is actually gonna bring Sabrina and Nick closer?
Maybe Sabrina's now a bit more gung-ho for Nick, considering he did have this heroic act. And maybe because of the trauma that having the Dark Lord and him, maybe he's gonna be resistant to it. Sabrina and Harvey are still OG loves. There's definitely something powerful between them. There's definitely gonna be a lot of tension, for sure.
I'm really hoping we're gonna get a Harvey-Nick bromance next season. It doesn't need to be anyone fighting over our girl. And also, let's have Sabrina have female friends. Let's have Sabrina and Prudence become besties. My hopes for season 3. Personally, I'm Team Nick, but let us know who you want Sabrina to end up with in the comments below.